We are going now to meet George, who is one of the leaders of the Occupy London campaign, as I promised I would, and we look forward to meeting him and hearing what he and some of his friends have to say.
Yesterday doing Jesse Jackson.
You're right, man. Good to see you.
Yeah,
Nick,
look in the park.
what do you reckon?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
There's one massive giveaway.
Shoes, yeah.
Couldn't find, think you're going to buy another pair.
But no, it's good though because the lace isn't done up quite right. It's good.
You like that?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Interestingly, like you see quite a lot of people like who are homeless have like one very smart outfit.
Right.
And then they got one pair of nice shoes and whatever.
Well, this is mine.
There we go. How's it going, man? Good, man.
Where do you want to go?
Do you want to hang around? That it's quite
quiet.
kind of low key at this point. A lot of the working groups are doing their working group stuff behind the scenes, and but yeah. So I mean, there's not going to be a.
But we're just very happy to sit down and ask you a few questions, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, so I'll take you a quick one around. So this is one of our sort of interesting spiritual locations. This is not great. I don't think that name is ever really going to work.
The progressive utilisation theory.
I think it's a great idea, but Prout I don't think has quite the.
Call it trout.
The transgression.
It sounds too much like trout, doesn't it? But they're really lovely. They wear orange and chant a lot, and I think they're very good for us, basically.
They're just bringing good karma.
Yeah.
Got it.
Which we kind of need. I think. But yeah, we can.
Did you well, you know him. It's all good.
Yeah, it's really bizarre, isn't it?
Devin was very, very good friends with my ex-girlfriend like 15 years ago, 14
You've had a
years
few
ago.
Ex-girlfriends, Georgie.
My first very, very significant ex-girlfriend, basically.
Right.
Way back when.
You're going to become the most famous person.
Is the slightly petty but significant part. So this is the library.
And is it with the books in here?
So it's donated. Anyone, you don't have to sign anything out. Anyone can take anything and read anything.
Right.
We've got, because it's just books that people have given. Then there's a lot of sort of really crappy novels and stuff. But some really interesting political stuff as well.
That was my question. Is it literature of politics, or if I brought a whole load of books from home, because I'd love to bring some, I don't need a room clearing it.
So in many cases it is the crappy novels that people have read and not going to read again. But there's some really interesting political stuff. I think the interesting political stuff tends to move more quickly than the other things. But,
right.
But,
and then they can't put it back and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But I can definitely.
Socialist resistance down there. This I actually picked up a while ago and haven't read, but I think I'm quite curious about that.
I might sign that out.
Yeah, go for it.
Socialist resistance.
So Marx's
how to make an
beard
eco-socialist revolution.
Which is basically, in some senses, what I think we need to do. As long as it's sort of feminist and decentralised and democratic, I think that's a pretty.
As long as it's feminist,
decentralised and democratic.
Right.
So that's the main thing.
Okay.
Because the reality is that an element of socialism is the only thing that makes democracy respectable.
Got it.
No one thinks that if 51% of people think that awful things should happen to 49%, then
that's the right way to do it.
It's when democracy necessarily represents values that we all share, such as reaching out to the most vulnerable, providing things people need. That's when democracy becomes this thing that we can sell to the world, use as an excuse to deny it from people and steal their stuff.
Okay. You're a superstar, mate.
But,
thank you. Ellen MacArthur, Race Against Time.
Buttons.
What, could you update us on when you think it might sort of turn a little bit nasty in terms of the eviction order and stuff like that? Because I know you're at the forefront of all of that.
We're imagining that probably the case will only be most of next week, and the chances are we won't win if sort of precedent.
If Wall Street was anything to go by, yeah.
Well, no. Don't forget that Wall Street didn't have a case. As far as I know, this is the only court case about one of these camps that has happened.
That was just Mayor Bloomberg saying enough's enough.
Yeah, just smash them out in the middle of the night. It was announced at 1 a.m. They were out by 3:30.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're going to court is significant, and I think really goes back to Giles Fraser. I mean, maybe you could argue that Britain has the kind of tradition that means that was likely anyway, but if you ask me, I think the only reason it's gone to court is because Giles Fraser told the police to leave on the second day, and it meant that from the beginning they weren't able to portray this as virtually everything I've ever been involved in terms of activism has been portrayed, i.e. police versus protesters, all a bit tense, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe they were a bit dangerous.
In other words, everyone was getting on fine, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So it became clear that because we were peaceful, non-violent, etc., they needed to go through the
motions.
official channels.
Are you proud of this country that it actually has gone to the courts? I mean, in some respects, that's probably, you know, a good thing. Reflects well on Britain.
No. I think certainly I grew up, as most of us do, seeing this country in terms of its internal dynamics, and certainly relative to a lot of places in the world. I mean, even though it's been getting progressively worse with neoliberalism as inequalities increased and social problems have increased, we do have very meaningful rights that billions of people across the world look at with kind of appropriate, not envy, but you know what I mean. You know, because previous generations have fought very hard for them, and I think that's something that we would lose at our peril. My view of this country has shifted as I've come to realise that far more of what's bad about this country is what we do to the other side of the world.
Right.
It's our willingness, you know, in the London, for instance, to do business with the corrupt dictators of the world, allow their money to come in here, and so we have nice democracy, relatively speaking, for our people, but we are very much part of a sort of international money power which denies real democracy to people across the world.
To other people.
Because it gets in the way of free markets and all the rest of it.
Shall we move around? Yeah. Thank you.
So, and then through there you can't see as a sort of legal tent kind of TARDIS. You know.
Hold on, just do me. And there's no point if we can't film it. There's no point.
Yeah, those underpants should be for posterity.
Come and film my underpants.
There we go.
Come on, get a look at these underpants. Isn't they sexy?
Are you all right? Are you all warm enough in there?
Yeah, we're pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, we're keeping it warm.
Good. How you doing, guys? All right?
Hi, buddy. All right.
Cold, yeah. A bit cold myself, actually. I haven't got any drink on me, I'm afraid. All right. I wish you all a happy Christmas. All right, as happy as it can be, anyway. All right.
Thank you.
Happy Christmas.
And then I had to put down on the floor by security here.
Hello, it's Spanish TV. Good morning, Spain.
We had
Look at my
to
underpants.
stand on front of the paparazzi and you
Actually
might
looked them
take a
up.
photograph and I put my hand on front of them and he just pushed me twice.
Really?
Yeah, the cameraman did yesterday.
That's not nice.
It wasn't very nice at all, but
No.
It was really inspiring.
it was excellent, man. I was only
really
standing
eloquent.
a couple of yards away from him, and I felt honoured to be
Did
in
you see,
his...
did you see his speech?
Jesse's?
Yeah, yeah.
I was on the phone to you at the time.
Yeah, no, but I imagine it's on the internet.
Oh, I haven't seen it on TV. I haven't been home
It's really
since.
good.
I haven't been home
It's really
since.
Excellent.
Had a
It's a
bit.
great. When I saw him, I was reminded. Do you know Stephen Colbert or Colbert? Who's he was part of Saturday Night Live, not Saturday Night Live, the Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and the most famous thing that Steve Colbert. Have you ever seen this? There's a thing. If you look up on the internet, the White House Correspondents' Dinner. It's an absolutely amazing thing that happens. So the White House Correspondents' Dinner is an annual thing where the president and loads and loads of very influential people come along, and it's the kind of the one day of the year where all the kind of hack journalists in Washington get together with the top brass and they invite for their big dinner like a comedian. And so the Bush team invited this guy who's a parody talk show host. His job is to be a sort of piss take version of right wing. It's not exactly, not exactly talk show host, but a sort of pundit type.
Right.
And they didn't realise it was a parody, so they got him and this George Bush is sitting there, and it's absolutely amazing. But the line that comes to mind, and I recommend that anyone see that, by the way, I won't go into it more, but the line that comes to mind is he says, yeah, I talked to Jesse Jackson once, it's virtually impossible to debate, it's like punching a glacier.
Is that right?
Because he has this incredibly slow, deliberate delivery that's really amazing.
Well, I had a question. One question for you. If there was one thing we could do, as a sort of investment bank, to help you out, what would you say that would be?
In
I can only speak for me personally, but does it bring more books? Is it? Is it
I thought you meant
does it
on a
bring
sort of
food?
macro
Not in a
political
macro
level.
global level, but
Oh,
just
okay.
like a short-term
So I've got
win,
some answers on
a
that.
Christmas win.
Food is brilliant. Books are brilliant. I mean, pretty much anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
so
yeah.
if we brought you some Christmas cheer, a hamper of food,
That would be good. That
not
would be good.
probably not too much booze. That's not helpful, right?
Yeah. No booze. No booze.
Money would be good.
Money would be
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Money we're struggling with at the moment.
Like at the moment, I think the camp could relax
Yeah.
and breathe again. We had about 20,000 pounds.
What happened to us was that Evening Standard did this very sort of
I'm serious.
positive
I'm not-
piece, but there was actually very insidious in its effect. It did a double spread called Camponomics, and this was early on where people were donating a fair amount of money and it was all going quite well. And they basically made it look as if we were just like sitting pretty and getting loads of money and da. And pretty much from that time, like donations started dipping a lot.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
instead of people seeing us as like
As
struggling
hungry
out
and
in the
struggling,
cold, we all
you've
sort of
got-
seem to be fine.
Because there's a campaign that needs to be fought here, right? It's not just about
Exactly.
and any funded campaign
Yeah.
needs money.
The
Right.
most useful thing you could do, though, really on the macro level, is engage with the politics and ultimately be open to these debates. And the idea would be to persuade you that you need to campaign alongside us for putting the creation of money back into the hands of democratic forces. Splitting off retail and investment, I think, is really, really crucial. Even
I
though
think that's
know
going to
that-
happen. I think that's probably going to happen anyway.
I mean, the Vickers report said it's going to happen really slowly in this sort of slightly half-assed way, but it's not enough, and that's not till. I mean, I'm not an expert, but it's not till 2018.
I wrote on my blog about that. It's called
Yeah.
More Tea Vickers.
More tea Vickers. No, I'll check that out.
Yeah. Should we move to a different venue? And then I'd love to just do a little bit of a Q&A with you. Is that all right?
Definitely.
All right.
But yeah, and come keep an eye out for the scheduled talks here, because some of them are really, really interesting.
Okay.
Like, professors of all sorts of things come down from different
Just normally I'm in
universities.
slightly different outfits, so it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if I rocked up.
We have people in nice outfits come down.
Yeah, that's good.
We do.
Well,
in fact, the ones that give the talks that I think George is talking about are in nice
Yeah.
outfits.
Well, what I will do, this is in a personal capacity, it's nothing to do with the people that I work for. I think that given the fact that you and George have given us your time, I personally will definitely make a donation or give something to you.
That'd be amazing.
For you for you for the interview or whatever, and then you do whatever you want.
Not
with
for the interview, but
it.
that'd be amazing.
Yeah,
I got.
we'll do something.
I was sponsored last month for my rent by this woman who Marchioness, who makes activist movies and stuff. So that was quite interesting. It's the only reason I've been able to prepare for the court case. Being able to take a bit more time off work.
Okay. And to get around.
That was funny.
Okay.
Wondering things.
Fresh produce: bananas, tomatoes, soy milk, cheese.
Pretty much anything. Oh, this is for me. Here you go. I think all of this is for me, actually.
That's all of the. This is all of the stuff that you've got to read through. This is the legal
And
case.
half, it's for me and Dan. So yeah, this was supposedly by Monday. We should definitely get an adjournment. It's ridiculous the amount that I'm not going to be able to get through by the time the.
And I've taken up some of your valuable time as well.
That's fine. I'm not
So,
gonna-
question: are you a trained lawyer?
No.
You're not a trained. What did you study?
Philosophy. I did law for a year. That's how I know Danielle. I was doing law at Oxford. That's the connection.
Okay, you
And
did
then-
law. You studied law at Oxford
For-
University.
for a year, and then went to do philosophy at UCL.
Right,
But I know
right.
Danielle from St Hughes.
And I'm not trying to show off, but and this is true, I have a third-class honours degree in textiles
No.
from the University of Manchester Institute of Science and Technology.
Nice.
So we're both academics, which is good.
Oh, indeed.
Huh?
That'd be great.
You want the signers visitors book?
Of course, yeah. So we can keep in touch with you and any important issues we feel you should be aware of, or any sort of blurb we can send you. Well, I think some of the people who worked in take that if you like. Some of the people who work in the stock exchange perhaps felt a certain amount of personal attack from they
Animosity.
read sides saying greedy bankers and all the rest of it. Well, a lot of the time that's just people expressing their anger, their bitterness, their rage, this sort of thing, and it's not meant to be deliberately antagonistic. The point is it's very easy to attack a group of people personally and say, well, the system's fine, but there was these bad apples and we should just blame them. But I think you have to take a step back and go, well, what system were those people working within that actually rewarded them for that behaviour? And the system does reward people for sacrificing, human needs and human rights and the environment for profit. It makes the money, and so that's what people do.
You see, one of the things George and I got together yesterday, and we explained that we started our stockbroking company in a warehouse in Brick Lane, and every year for 10 years, one day a year, we would just donate all of our profits to charity. So we have raised over the last 10 years £10 million for charity, and that wasn't, so it's nothing to do with the credit crunch. In other words, we believed, like you, that the firm had to have a soul, it had to have a heartbeat, it had to have a reason to exist, other than just purely, lining our own pockets. So of course, to a lot of my staff who have always had this sort of philanthropic heartbeat, it was like, I really want to get out and meet some of these people, because actually with the Urban Music Collective, the United Estates of Wythenshawe, it's probably 30 or 40 charities that we help and have done on a continual basis. So for me, it was really interesting, because I sort of felt a little bit angry personally, because I've really tried to do things the right way, and I've really tried to do things the right way for 10 years, well before 2008 ever occurred as an event, because it's the right way to live your life. And also our customers have been incredibly, responsive to helping. So I think our industry has a real problem in terms of they're really very bad at their own PR as well. Although George's response was like, we shouldn't really have had the right to earn the money that we had in the first place in order to be able to give it away.
Well, those are very sort of fundamental questions about what kind of economic and political system we live within. I mean, I used to do a lot of work in charities, raising money with charities and things, and it wouldn't matter who you were talking to quite often. If you asked a person to give to the poor, quite often they'd feel personally attacked, because they feel, well, I'm a good person, I feel like the finger's being pointed at me. Whereas 9 out of 10 of those people say exactly what you say. They say, I'm just making a living and I try and give whatever I can to charity. So I think that impulse is there. But the problem arises where we live in a society that says, right, you are forced to look after your own interests in competition with other people. So you've got to basically foster a certain amount of selfishness to get into a situation where you're secure. Then you can start thinking about other people, and you do, because you're a good person.
Well, I think, the message that we're going to take away from today, I hope what I'm saying is the message that we take away from today is that the way this works, for me anyway, is that they see us here together and that we feel like we've taken a step forward. In fact, what I think we should do is I think we should get your Christmas shopping list for you. How does that sound? Huh?
I mean, that would be amazing. I mean, I think the kind of tension, if you like, in this situation. Yeah, no, I mean,
It's like-
that's good.
But hold on, it's a good question. Why don't I have the right to help the shopping list?
You do.
Yeah.
And it would be very much appreciated. The only sort of reservation is around your institution, the complexity around your sort of institutional agency.
Yeah.
Like as a person.
But I'm here as me. It's nothing to do with.
Which is great. And as a person, we're
I was going as far as to say that I might actually get in a little bit of trouble, for being here, or not trouble, but I would think they would much rather I weren't here, institutionally.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm really glad you're here, and any donations we much appreciated. But yeah, it's much easier to be donations from you as a human being.
That's the only way it was coming. Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to put it through expenses. Put it that way, George. Huh? So we'll do something. All right. Is there anywhere else we should go?
Yeah.
He's like disappearing.
Just on
Just on that.
Yeah.
Oh, so this is a particularly interesting location. This is the site of this, perhaps the most kind of Monty Python moment in our 50 days here, where
Where's the inn?
sorry.
How do you get in?
Well, like here.
Oh right.
So the most Monty Python moment of the 50 days was when about I don't know what unit they were from, but kind of machine gunned city police turned up, and about 40 of them went into the set. You know that Life of Brian scene where like 50 of them go into the thing and then they come out with a spoon, like 2 hours later.
Oh right. So there's like a full raid on the tent by the
because
police.
there was like some tip-off that there were like weapons of mass destruction there or something. It was absolutely ridiculous, and they were in there for ages, and there was a massive crowd outside, and then they just trooped out with absolutely nothing. And it's because they're sort of like so many organisations that are trying to do something about the depravities in their country, listed as the PKK is the Socialist Party in Turkey.
It's Life of Brian,
that's been
the Judean People's Front.
Yeah, no.
Or is it the People's Front of Judea?
Exactly, and that believe me is a pertinent dynamic, I think, to any movement like this. But yeah, so that was pretty funny. And
I like this. Put your money where your mouth is. Go vegan. That's a good saying. Yeah. Where, George, which is your tent? Where are your digs?
Putting the things here, because this was the most sort of iconic
bit of here was the "What would Jesus do" sign that me and my friend put up. We had the bit of democracy sign. That's the Banksy, which is looking a bit worse for wear.
That just turned up, did it?
Yeah, it's a Banksy.
That is a Banksy.
Yeah, it is a Banksy.
So does that mean
Yeah, the
Banksy
first
turned up and created that?
I think somebody he created it and somebody delivered it on his behalf.
It
It had little kind of monopoly houses and stuff.
do people find it as a work of art palatable?
Yeah, well, it was better before people have been stealing the bits of it.
You got it.
Because they're valuable.
Did you get that?
Sorry?
I said, do they find the work of art palatable?
Oh, sorry, you got it.
Huh?
I didn't get it. Sorry.
Oh, so I thought it was funny.
It was funny.
Ah.
My collation photos. But yeah, look, I've got.
Can I get in there, Georgie?
Other people's random.
No, not really.
Got loads of. This isn't my stuff. This isn't my stuff. And what it means is that when it's wet, because I can't be diagonal, if anything's touching the thing, then I get totally soaking. So it's just absolutely soaked in here now from last night. Look at all that.
That's horrible.
If I can be diagonal, then I can not touch the sides, and it's all right when it's raining.
Oh.
I know. I need to sort it out.
You need to sort
So
that out.
it's
Otherwise,
barely
you know,
slept last night,
seriously,
it's
you'll
horrible.
be you'll just get hypothermia if you don't sort that out.
Yeah, and then I need to. I think I'm just gonna put this in.
You need a dry day.
You've got to get a pallet for us.
Let's go and get him a warm coffee. Yeah, let's do that. Come on. Do yet, even. This is the food tent. There's plenty.
And it's amazing the kind of proactivity that we take for granted here. There are people that are really amazing. This stuff was done in one night. Like the temple's closed at about midnight, and by 8 in the morning, all these shelves were.
And all the food is just donated.
And some of it's bought, some of it's donated. The People's Supermarket has been donating some.
And then we're running out. Did you say that bit? Like how the things are all
Cool. Very cool.
And gas is also an expense.
Huh?
Gas is an expense.
Of course.
Might be something you're interested in this one, actually. You should check it out. I don't know that much about it, but it's a sort of alternative to the big supermarkets. I think they're. I can't remember if I saw a little program on it a couple of years ago, but it's a sort of cooperative style.
Supermarket. Yeah, I've heard of that before.
To like.
In America, they started, I think.
Oh, did they? Okay.
I'm not sure, but I don't know.
They do it in
Do you
Australia.
want to grab a biscuit?
No, I'm good, thank you. I just had a full English. So we want to go to the pub.
Yeah. If Bobby can't have lunch, he just wants to meet with you at some stage.
Fine.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. We're only at
Should we go and have a cup of coffee?
home. Yeah, I think
Because
everyone needs to be warmed up
Yeah.
a bit.
Because I've actually got a few. As I said, I would also like to interview you if you don't mind. So with your filming, I mean, how many hours of footage have you got?
Well, I've been trying to be their press person.
The oppressed.
Their press person.
Oh, the press person.
So because all the filmmakers that come around Occupy LSX are making their own documentaries, and I just felt like Occupy LSX needed somebody to make them their stuff.
Right.
You know, and so that's what I've been trying to do.
And where do you come from, Inca?
I'm complicated.
I don't mean sort of geographically. I mean sort of in this country, or you know,
I'm
what makes you rock up?
I'm Maltese Australian.
Ilostia al Madonna.
Ilalu.
Ilala. I love Malta. I've been going to Malta like all my whole life. All my best friends in the world are Maltese.
Well-
Sabiha.
Yeah, grazie. Intico. Anyway, whatever. So, you know,
Fantastic,
blah, blah,
the
blah.
Maltese.
And I'm Australian as well. And I've lived in Malta for the last 3 years. And I work in Israel and Palestine. And I believe in spiritual awareness. And so this Occupy LSX is about spiritual...
So did you come from Malta to here
Yeah.
to help film?
No, I came from Malta to here to see someone. And then when Occupy LSX happened while I was here, I decided to stay. Because a tent is, after all, cheap rent.
Right.
I can't afford to live in a tent here. And so I can't afford to do this work. But there's
Wow.
no income coming in while I'm here.
Wow.
Yeah.
What part of Malta?
São Paulo Bahar.
Right.
And and then I ended up in Msida.
Right.
Floriana, Hamrun and Floriana is where I'm from.
Okay.
Yeah.
My parents live in Porto Massa, in St
Well-
Julian's.
Actually, I was brought up in Pachaville.
Okay, which is lovely.
Yeah, but I say where my parents are from because I thought you were
Wow.
being Maltese. So, yeah,
Right. I can't speak Maltese.
Yeah, right.
I can say 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Tree. That's what Maltese say.
Anyway. So Porto Massa was built right in front of where I live.
Right.
Where I grew up. You know those block of flats that are right in front of...
No, I went to the Cavalieri Hotel when I was like
Yeah.
10.
So that's where I...
Oh, fantastic. That's very funny.
That is funny.
Okay. So I have
Church
another question. So, and this is something that I need to know the answer to. What is an investment banker?
Crazy. Oh, okay,
What do
fair
you
enough.
think an investment banker is? Because I'm very confused by the definition of it.
All right. My understanding, and I don't have any understanding of what an investment banker is, my guess, my absolute guess, not even an educated guess, is that it's somebody who uses the bank's money and invests it in relatively gambling schemes that are legalized, so stock exchange.
Legalized gambling.
Legalized gambling.
Okay.
And hopes for the best.
It's not a bad answer, I think. Legalized gambling is probably.
Yeah.
Huh? I'm trying to think what else. And do you? So you're. It's not. Anger's probably not the right word. You're. What a better word than anger. Your sort of communications are directed towards who? Is it the city? Is it the government? Is it investment bankers? Or, is it institutional? Is it global? What are we trying to change here?
Okay,
That's what I guess I'm getting
I
at.
guess my personal take on this would be trying to stir up people
Yeah.
to stop allowing other people to make decisions for them, like holistically. So the mess that we're in now, as far as I can tell, is because corporations control our government.
Right.
And that's kind of not aimed at investment bankers, but that's the mess that we got ourselves in. So as for the middle-aged and older folk of our population, they got us in this mess.
Right.
We're responsible for this mess. And so I'm actually...
We're all sort of complicit, aren't we? We're all in it together, or not?
Well, things came up, but also bad press. Sorry, Madam Guardian. But I really feel the press being so freaking lazy with what they choose to cover and being in the pockets of governments and of government leaders when it comes to wars, right? Because that's how it seems they make money, and of laws that change so that corporations can end up controlling our democracy. The press is, to me, vilely lazy in the way that they portray things that are going on. But I do see that they have
Are you talking about
problems.
in terms of exposing corporate wrongdoing, or is that what you're talking about? Because you said
corporate and government wrongdoing. Both, because it's intertwined as far as I can tell. But I'm here, unlike maybe George, and my aim is about the spiritual aliveness of us to say no, that this is not good, and to write those letters to the MPs, because there were systems in place for the people to have their say, and we just didn't bother, as far as I can tell.
right.
And I don't think England is any different. Also, I mean, my experience comes from Australia, but England, I think, has
Australia,
suffered the
America,
same.
any Western capitalistic
Yes,
society
yes.
operates along the same lines.
Where we dived, lots of activists are now people who simply educate themselves on the computer. That's it. That's what they call activism, by going tap 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 on a computer and not getting off their bums and into the cold or into anywhere to make their voices be heard. And a computer is easy to ignore. There's no passion in talking, in seeing an email. So that's actually my aim, is to stir up people. And investment bankers will hopefully follow. They're people too, right? And you hopefully occupy the conscience is where I'm at.
Well, I think one of the problems of investment bankers is that actually they do an astonishing amount of philanthropic work, right?
Right.
It's just that they're appalling about letting the rest of the world know about it.
Okay.
In other words, they kind of do it quite quietly. And have always done it quietly, and actually I think they need to be a little bit more public in their profile, in terms of not necessarily the things that they're starting to do now, but the things that they have always done, which they've never mentioned.
I feel,
And again, there's an argument that sort of George has that says that they shouldn't have the money that they have to be able to do what they did anyway.
Unfortunately, I'm not. I'm not that well versed, but I believe that the fundamental system of how bankers make money is bad. And so the money that comes to the philanthropic part of it is something that I don't have all that much respect for.
Yeah, he said the same. That's interesting.
I do respect that you do it. And like the big gazillions of money that goes to charity and NGOs comes from banks. I know that.
Not all of it, but
but a lot of it
some.
does. The big sums come from banks and come from very rich people who have made their money in a way that is usually, well, like.
So what do you think about
legalised
something like the
corruption.
Gates Foundation or Warren Buffett giving all of his money to charity and Bill Gates giving 90% of his money to the Gates Foundation?
I don't know enough about that to comment.
Well, they earned it a different way. That's all I'm saying. Or Bill Gates earned it through selling computers.
That's right.
Is he allowed to? Is he part of that system, or
Well,
is he?
Bill Gates then, with the computer part, then there's possibly another issue with computers, in that a lot of money that's generated from computers comes from the military industry. So again, it's possibly quite poisoned money as well. But
So what is unpoisoned money?
well, unpoisoned money is,
Farming.
well, it's fair enough for you to ask, and I am a little uncomfortable about talking about this because I feel like our belief that the system can be changed and can be better shouldn't be ridiculed by the fact that I don't have, that I'm not super educated in these things.
I don't think there's an answer. I don't think it's about education. There's not a simple answer to the question.
The feeling I have is something that I believe all of us have. We have a people are conscious that things are wrong, but they don't know how to change it. And what Occupy is trying to do is communicate.
All right, here you go. We can let you off the hook for a while now. Thank you.
Cup of tea, thank you very much.
No, that's brilliant. Enjoy it. How long have you been at The Guardian for?
3 years.
Yeah?
Before that was on the Daily Telegraph. Then Walker.
Where were you before that?
Mail on Sunday.
My wife's favourite.
Before that, really?
Oh.
Before that, Evening Standard.
Before that, the Evening Standard.
Yeah,
Is there a
long
Feingold
time.
that writes for the Evening Standard?
Who?
A Feingold? No, maybe not.
The name rings a bell, but
That's my last name, but I'm sure I saw a journalist whose last name was the same. No.
I think they used to be. Yeah.
I have to say, The Guardian is not a paper that I.
That you read.
Well, do you know what? It's not like I read it or I don't read it. It's just kind of never been around.
Yeah.
I don't mean I couldn't have bought it. I just.
No.
My dad used to read the Times and the Telegraph, and kind of.
Well, yeah.
And I read the Times and the Telegraph, and.
My dad used to read the Daily Express.
Funny enough, my newspapers I get the Sun and the FT, and I've done that for 25
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
It's a good combination.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen? They're going to
Very
make you
interesting to
stand
see
up in
whether they-
court?
Yeah,
Huh?
but the legal framework is very much skewed against the meaningful inclusion of any of the real issues that we're here for. Like the framing of the European Convention of Human Rights is very much about one's right in abstracto to assemble or to speak freely, versus the rights of local people not to be interfered with in any way. So it's very much set up so as not to include the wider issues. But so my job, and this is the reason I'm in the case, is to try and basically constrain the court to consider why we're there as essential to it. Because let's face it, it's a ridiculous process if you take Occupy London to court without considering why we're there. Because, if it weren't for the wider political issues, we would have no meaningful justification. And okay, people can assemble and that's fine, but we're not there primarily in order to assemble. And this is, I think, the most important framing that we need to resist. And you see President Obama, Cameron, etc. There's this great quote from Cameron. He was in front of some select committee the other week, and I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something like, of course people have the right to protest, but that's totally separate from the issues under discussion, which were the economy and everything else. And it's precisely not separate. That's the thing. That as long as you frame the right to protest as almost this sort of
fetishised consumer choice possibility. You completely miss the point of protest, that it's not there
I know, so often
in order to express a democratic right. That democratic right is there so that people can actually agitate for meaningful change, and working against that. And like I say, Obama does exactly the same thing, Well, I very much respect their right to protest as if it's just this sort of token element of democracy that needs to be there, rather than that protest has been fundamental to any meaningful change over the last 100 years.
You've got to punctuate it with questions. Otherwise they switch off.
Well, no, you know. But I've known George now. He goes on one, and then, it's all good stuff.
If you tune in, it is good.
No, it is good stuff. It is. The problem is with it's like in our industry, it's the same thing, right? If we write research, if we don't make our point, everyone's fighting for airtime, right? So, in many ways, it's not just about the points you have to make; it's the way you market them as well,
And I mean, a related point is that I would say sort of 60% probably of propaganda is form rather than content. It's that if you're trying to challenge the status quo, you can only do so by setting the scene of a different worldview that goes against the standard one.
Yeah.
And so if you're making a comment within the mainstream, you can do that sort of within the sort of standard parameters of media narratives. You can make that point quickly and it can be understood. If you're trying to repicture the world and then make seconds or even 1,000 words for that matter.
Yeah, and I feel too that the press, especially at the start, they kept on saying, okay, so can you explain in 10 words what you're about? And it's like, you know what, guys, this time you're going to have to work a little harder because we can't express what we want in 10 words. And it's not because what we want is invalid, it's because there's more to it. It's not changing the system because the sea is superior. It's just not that simple.
Yeah.
What we're about. Anyway, but I think I have come across Occupy's communication.
I think this.
Yeah, that's as vague as you know. It's about communicating.
We talked
Right
about
now,
this yesterday.
This is Occupy.
We talked about this yesterday. There is no answer. There is no place to which you are going, right? There is no. If someone says to you, "What do you hope to achieve?" It's not a one-word answer, right? But there are just two types of things in life. There's forward moving and improvement, and there's backward moving, right? And as long as one feels one is moving forward, as long as one feels one's making progress, then I think it's justifiable. In other words, I think what you're doing, I don't think what you're doing will change anything, right? But I think you will make things.
It's already changing.
I think I was about to say, in terms of a meaningful difference to the way anybody really goes about living their lives, but I think that you will improve things.
That hurts, and I tell you.
I think you will
something.
improve things.
No, but
You go.
Okay,
You go first.
thank you.
So improvement, but not.
I think that's
fundamental.
That our biggest enemy to what Occupy is kind of trying to do, those 10 points, is not the financial system.
No.
It's not bad press. It's not the police. It's cynicism.
Yeah.
So cynicism, which you have just expressed, is our biggest enemy. So you can't just sit next to two occupiers and say, you are not going to change anything and expect us not to go
No.
because it's cynicism. It's
Yeah.
you've got to recognize your own cynicism. If you really want this world to be a better place, you have to recognize it in yourself because it's in you. It's in
You have
every
to go
one
to
of
the
us.
mountaintop. I mean, that's why that Martin Luther King speech was one of the most significant things in the 20th century. It's that it was somebody who managed to get to the forefront of the public mind and actually espouse a different vision of the world.
Yeah.
And obviously he had to be shot because he was campaigning
Had
against
to be.
corporate power
But
and
that's
all
what it
sorts
is.
of
And
stuff,
we also have
which a lot of people
cynicism.
forget in-
No, I wasn't
In our
actually.
text,
Fun
when
enough.
asleep,
I
cold,
think you
cynicism
weren't.
is
I think you
there.
weren't trying to-
I wasn't being cynical. What I was saying is I think that, by the way, when I said you wouldn't change anything, I'm not sure that there's a bill that's passed or there's a concrete conclusion is what I meant. I think you'll improve things, right? In other words, I think that things will get slightly better.
Improve is change.
That's right. Well, that's why we're slightly at cross purposes.
Can I recommend my totally incomprehensible dissertation that I've submitted to the court? Because the point that makes is in terms of the ecological situation we face,
we have a very fixed time frame, and no one knows exactly how long that time frame is to turn things around incredibly quickly. I mean, the climate science, the mainstream overly conservative climate science of 5 years ago was saying we need to have carbon emissions in the world peak by 2015, 2017. And we just had a meeting in Durban where they're saying we're not going to do anything until 2020. So, and you know, even the Stern reports, the chief economist of the World Bank, UK government thing, said this is going to be tens of trillions of dollars that is going to be counted in, you know, all sorts of costs to the global economy, including, you know, millions of deaths, etc., hundreds of millions displaced. So, the sense in which we actually it is necessary in the world. Change in a very short time in order to avoid cataclysmic change is something that we all have to try and get our heads around. So that very intuitive idea that you just expressed, which is that as long as things are getting better, then it's okay, is something that we need to understand in a very particular.
Well, I guess sometimes you have to try and bite off more than you can chew in order to make pigeon steps.
Exactly.
If you didn't have a much as aggressive a stance as you have, then it would take much longer.
It's actually very, very rational and practical, you know. And as I said, this is climate science from 2007. It's inherently conservative because it only really reflects what the computer models have worked out how to include, and a lot of the feedbacks in the system are either things that feed into each other to make it worse and worse, and not even in that science. So the sense in which it is absolutely necessary that we turn the world economy around on a sixpence. I mean, to go back to what you were saying before,
how do we do that without growth?
So Green New Deal, basically the way I see it is that what capitalism needs by definition, because it's a growth model and money is always lent at interest based on the prediction of growth, and in fact it hasn't happened, is why we're in such trouble at the moment. It's not debt per se, it's debt versus GDP. But so what we need is for capitalism to redeem itself with a last great frontier, which is the Green New Deal, and then we need to have a very careful plan which involves redemocratising the money supply to bring the global economy to a steady state. Economists out there, but it's only going to happen if millions of people across the world get together to shift the economic powers that be that currently dictate.
And the only thing that stops people doing that is cynicism. Thinking, oh, if I take my money out of this bank and put it in an ethical bank and get, as a consequence, £200-300 less a year, right? It's not going to change anything, and so I won't, because all I'm going to achieve from that is getting £200 to £300 less a year. So I won't do it. But if everybody moved their money out of banks that are unethical into banks that are ethical, so I am told, then there would be a real shift in the confidence that unethical banks have, right?
So what happens if people took money out of their bank accounts? Just funny you should mention this, but I'm working on a scheme, and pledged it as collateral to charities who could then borrow money. So you wouldn't have to give it away, you'd just pledge it. Because in other words, so Barclays won't shut down Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital, right? They won't come and seize possession of Great Ormond Street. But actually what happened to it's actually a true story. They needed 250 million for Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital, and one of my friends, they got to 150 million and they went to the British government, they said, can we have the other 50? And they said, yes, when you've got a fully funded business plan. And they went to 50 very rich people and they said, right, you know, we'll give you $1 million each when you've got a fully funded business plan. So there was a 100 million gap. So because Great Ormond Street raised 25 million a year, right, he eventually persuaded Barclays off their income stream to lend them the 100 million. Barclays went, we'll lend you the 100 million. The British government went, okay, we'll give you the 50. The 50 donors went, we'll give you $51 million. And they never needed the loan they never ever needed the loan. In other words, the campaign's called Do Good, Give Nothing, right? And what you have to do good, give nothing, or good pledge. And what you do is, we all carry on donating to whatever charitable causes we like, but all the billions of dollars that's on the sideline that are in bank accounts, I can put £1 million in a bank account at 1%, pledged as collateral against the charity to give charities the working capital they need to get through the recession.
You're working on that.
Yeah. Written a proper business plan with a member of parliament, and it's a really great idea.
You've got a guy coming to speak this afternoon, haven't you? He was ex-Wall Street, he's an ex-investment banker. What's his name?
Today?
Yeah. Rodney Schwartz, CEO of Clearly So.
CEO of.
Clearly So, which is a social business enterprise, basically offering social business and enterprises advice, consultants, and what have you, how to get,
Into doing good.
how to invest.
Yeah, well, it has to be the way that things are going to work. It has to be a merger between capitalism and the ideals that I think everybody has, not just you guys.
We're the only ones that are prepared to be in a tent about
Stanley.
them.
And Nick, you'll hear me sort of repeating what I was saying yesterday, but because we have a new audience. But did anyone see the Ian Hislop When Bankers Were Good program on TV recently? So I highly recommend that. What he was doing was sort of contrasting these highly philanthropic 19th century bankers, people like the Gurneys, who were Quakers and they were stinking rich. What wasn't mentioned in the programme was probably a lot of that money was basically coming from imperial investments across the world, etc. The narrative of the film was seeming to say, back in the day bankers were good, now they don't seem to be so good. In parentheses, but I think in terms of the actual narrative, by far the most important point in that film was that what it said right towards the end is, and for all this money, it didn't really make any kind of serious dent into Victorian poverty because it was far too systemic, it was far too much driven by the kind of overall economic architecture, and the only thing that really did change things was basically socialist politics in the 20th century that put the provision of those good things that Nick and others believe in into the hands of an empowered government, and a government that was empowered through much more progressive taxation. And so I think where both what Inca and Nick are talking about are kind of very important sort of activist tools, if you like, in the absence of the systematic change we need to, so getting people to shift money from certain bank accounts to others, these create sort of micro pressures in the sort of stream of the economic status quo. Similarly, getting people that do have all this spare money to be doing good things with it is a really, really good idea. But in reality, the only way we're going to change things on anything like the scale required, and especially at the speed required, is by having those systematic shifts. And here the key is what they call the multiplier effect, which is you can get a million people to start behaving like kind of green consumers and trying not to spend their money in certain ways. That will have some not insignificant sort of micro supply chain effects across the world to quite a few 100,000 people maybe. When you get those million people instead, or not necessarily instead, but as well, organising politically to apply pressure at the top of the political system such that you get the rules changed. If you get the rules changed, then suddenly instead of just what happens to a few 100,000 people being different, what happens to tens of millions of people starts being different. And the sort of prisoner's dilemma thing, which I think we all know as human beings we're sucked into, which is that, and not people like yourself that are kind of going against the grain and really put your money where your mouths are generally going to be the exception. The vast majority of people will only do what they see to be the right thing if they know that other people are going to do it.
Yeah.
And by far the easiest way to do that is to get the rules changed so that everyone suddenly has confidence on pain of punishment that other people are going to do the right thing too. And then people go, oh, all right. And it's the whole sort of what they call invidious comparison in social science, that comparing ourselves to what our neighbours have and do is one of the most fundamental human tendencies. And that's why Jesus had that sort of parable about trying to teach people that the less they do that, the better. But in terms of being realistic about human nature, that is how most people tend to behave.
And what was it called? That
Invidious comparison. Invidious. So invidia it means neighbour in Latin. So it just means comparing yourself to your neighbours. So if you campaign to get the rules changed, then you can get massive changes.
I've got to shoot in about 5 minutes. I'm just trying to think about anything we want to do in terms of. I'd love.